with this one, just to get things started. There was a lot of coverage of CRT and education, especially at the end of the election. Was the real reason that education in schools were a top issue, was it because of CRT, or was it more of another underlying ime? Please speak.
It was more of an underlying issue. And first, I should have said when I started, so I've been involved in Virginia politics since I was a young Democrat when I went to college in 1990, and I've volunteered on campaigns ever since and have been at every level of the party, from president of the YDs to local committees, a district chair, vice chair, and all of that. So I more have come at it from the volunteer side until I became a candidate, and even as a candidate, I continue to volunteer on campaigns. But I'm also a parent. I have, I guess last year, a first grader, no, she was kindergarten. Last year, a kindergartner and a fifth grader who were in virtual school. My daughter was 4 and in preschool, and my son in fifth grade, when the pandemic started, they went home on a Friday and never went back. And my husband and I were trying to deal with, like every other parent, how do we keep our children safe? How do we both work while having kids in the house? How do we make sure that they're getting some kind of socialization because they miss their friends? Like, this was very traumatic. COVID in and of itself was traumatic. It was particularly traumatic for parents because you're dealing with your trauma and your kids' trauma. So there was a lot of parental anxiety that no candidate in the general election, in the governor's race, was talking about. And Glenn Youngkin was floundering for any issue that would stick and he could talk about. And Terry McAuliffe handed him that issue when in a debate, and the question was about CRT, and yes, CRT was starting to be discussed. But in that debate, when asked a question related to CRT, Terry said in an offhanded way, parents shouldn't be involved in what their kids are learning. And every parent I know who watched that debate, Democrat or Republican, said, he just lost the race. And it wasn't necessarily CRT, it was every parent who was anxious about something. And yes, there were parents who were anxious about CRT, even though they didn't know what it was. They knew it was bad because Glenn Youngkin told them and Fox News told them it was. But what really happened in that debate was those anxious parents said, here in Glenn Youngkin is a candidate who at least acknowledges that I'm an anxious parent. And here is a candidate in Terry McAuliffe who is dismissive of anxious parents. And the problem was, for the people who knocked on doors the next day, that's all they heard, was that one moment in that debate. Yet it took the campaign 3 weeks to respond. So that was the beginning of the end, really. And there are lots of other things that kind of laid the groundwork for why that was the beginning of the end. But again, it wasn't so much parents were worried that CRT was being taught in schools. It was that they just wanted somebody who was going to be governor to say, I recognize that you're anxious and I'm going to do something about it.